Why, hello, everybody. Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write for the Chicago Reader, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
Like the emphasis on the ass.
Yeah.
My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I am a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and am a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
Woo! I don't do the salute.
Yowza!
Because you can't see the salute. I mean, you can see it, but our
I can
listeners
see it, but
can't
no one
see
else
it.
can. Exactly. But you can hear her. Yow!
Yeah, you can hear that motherfucker, all right. So, on today's show, we are talking about a couple of movies. Get to that in a moment. I'll just tell you what they are now. We're going to talk about The Marsh King's Daughter and Quiz Lady. They both come out today if you're listening to this on Friday, November 3rd. But before we get into those movies, I just want to tell everybody listening, over on the Patreon, now that Halloween and October is over, we decided not to do a horror movie. For the bonus episode, we did Roman Holiday. Now, what a surprise that Dave and Megan would choose a romantic comedy. I know.
Shocking.
But I had never seen Roman Holiday, and I don't know if I'd ever seen an Audrey Hepburn movie. I'm pretty sure that I had not. So...
both of those things shocked me.
Yeah, I know. You should take away my fucking rom-com card. Anyway.
Well, but to be fair, you can't see everything.
You can't see everything. And also, I was like, there's only one true Hepburn, so, there was that.
Oh!
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I just made that up. So anyway, we talked about Roman Holiday. We had a lot of fun. Watching, discussing, blah, 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 blah. And now... if you are a patron...
all the blobs.
Exactly. Please go and listen to it. If you're not a patron, please consider becoming one, because we got like 400 some odd episodes of bonus material, and it's a lot of fun, and I swear a lot, and it's great. So, like I said a moment ago, we are covering The Marsh King's Daughter and Quiz Lady, so let's get right into that shit with The Marsh King's Daughter. Yet another movie in the long line of movies called... the so-and-so's daughter or wife or whatever. Yeah, it really is.
Or the girl of the blah-blah-blah.
It really is irritating. And,
yes.
I kind of gonna have a wild hair at my ass about it. It's just like, can we fucking come up with something? Like, the time traveler's wife? Fuck off. Like, is the story about her or is it about him? I mean, you fucking both ways in it. Give these women some agency, goddammit. Anyway. The Marsh King's Daughter.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is a thriller. Stars Daisy Ridley and Ben Mendelsohn. Directed by Neil Berger. Boo. And I mean, boo's not quite so. But I mean, if you've seen any movies in the Divergent series, then you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, here's your one sentence IMDb summary. A woman seeks revenge against the man who kidnapped her mother. That's not even remotely true.
That's not true at all.
That's not even close. What the fuck is that shit?
That's a lie.
So anyway, The Marsh King's Daughter is about... I'll see if I can 10-cent this. Daisy Ridley, as a young girl, is living in the wilderness with her mother and her father. And she's, 12, 13? And
that.
Her father is teaching her to be like a outdoorsman and teaching her to hunt the animals and do this and that. And you see that there's some domestic non-tranquility going on between Ben Mendelsohn and Mom. And then as it turns out, he kidnapped Mom. And it's kind of like that movie with Brie Larson where, they've been captive the whole time and... he's essentially, he has raped her and has resulted in the daughter who grows up to become Daisy Ridley. And the way that Daisy Ridley finds out that she is the product of this fucking horrible thing is that some random dude comes up on an ATV lost and is like, hey, I don't know where the fuck I am, which they're supposed to be in Michigan's UP, which I've been up there. It's not that fucking remote, but anyway. He's like, I don't know how to get back to the trail. And Daisy Ridley's mom is like, get us out of here. And he's like, what are you talking about, lady? And then Ben Mendelsohn comes over the ridge, shoots the guy in the neck, and Mom grabs the ATV and knocks young Daisy Ridley out. What is the character's name? Because I can't keep calling her
Helena.
Daisy.
Or Helena. Helena or Helena.
Right.
I don't know why I can't remember.
Well, people pronounce it differently depending on, like Mom calls her.
Okay, I thought I was hallucinating, so I'm glad I was not. Okay, fair.
Yeah, Mom calls her Helena. Dad calls her Helena. And other people do other things. So, like, Helena. No, I just made that up.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Mom knocks Helena out with a fucking rock because Helena, of course, doesn't think. She's like, what are you talking about, Mom? You're a psycho. She doesn't say that. And Mom rides him off.
But you're not far off because she's like, I want to go back with Dad. What's wrong with you?
Well, the kid has got, I guess whatever the kid version of not having known anything else, Stockholm syndrome. I don't know what you call it. Apparently, Mom never went to Stockholm this whole time. So she has been looking for the first, however she can get out of there thing. Right. And so young Helena and Mom end up in a police station in wherever, which is interesting because you would think that the FBI would be there immediately because that's what happens with kidnappings. But we never talk about the FBI in this movie anyway. Actually, we do. They show up later, but
we do briefly.
Yeah, they come to inform. Yeah, later in the movie, as the plot is developed. So Ben Mendelsohn shows up, of course, trying to lure young Helena away, and they get about 10 feet before they get caught. And because this guy's ego is so fucking big, I could believe it because his character's ego, as we learn, is so big. It's like
so big.
It's unbelievable. I'm not sure I've seen a bigger egomaniac on screen in quite a while. But because it's Ben Mendelsohn, it's all very understated.
Yeah. But anyway. Like the best abusers and manipulators, they're very good at weaseling their way into your heart. And so his understatedness kind of works in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can't be like over the top, like, come on, bitch, let's go. That's not going to work. So, especially I would think with a 13-year-old be like, whoa, where did this fucking attitude change come from? So anyway, he gets sent up the river for presumably for life. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And then we pick up 20 years later, and Daisy Ridley is married, and she has married to Garrett Hedlund. What is Garrett Hedlund doing in this tiny ass role in this movie?
That is weird.
It is weird, and I'm no Garrett Hedlund fan, but he's, a B+ level star. I don't understand how this happened. Maybe he owed Neil Berger a favor. I don't know. So, so Daisy Ridley is living somewhere in Michigan, which I would have fucking gone to Phoenix. I mean, I would have been way the hell.
Got the hell out of there, yeah.
Yeah. Which federal penitentiary is my dad in? Okay, he's in Minnesota. All right, we'll be in Guam, So anyway, she's got a kid. She's married to Garrett Hedlund. Dad escapes from prison. The FBI, this is when the FBI shows up to say, hey, your dad escaped from prison. And she's like, fuck. And then Garrett Hedlund's like, what do you mean your dad escaped from prison? That's actually an interesting scene because he doesn't say.
That is a good scene. Yeah.
He doesn't say, like, what are you talking about? I thought your parents were dead. He immediately says to the cops, well, what's the danger here? What's going on? And then once all that shit's over, he's like, you told me your parents were dead, dude. It's actually, it plays kind of the opposite way I would have thought. Because the first thing I thought when he starts talking to the cops and the FBI is, this is not how I thought this was going to go. I'm just going to get this out of the way because I'll forget. I think that this movie does a lot of things well and a lot of things badly. It's really kind of unfortunate that they cancel each other out,
Yeah.
Because there are some really good things in this, but then there are some things you're like, nah. So basically, Dad fakes his own death, which duh. And then, of course, he comes round to the house all clandestine-like and leaves a couple of trinkets that let Daisy Ridley know that he's still alive and, yes, I'm coming for whatever. And so she goes up to the cabin where she and her mother had been, well, I guess held captive with him. to find him. And I don't know if she goes up there with the intention of killing him, but that is what happens ultimately. Spoiler. It is spoiler piece.
It sure is.
So, yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's break into the nitty gritty here. Let's hear how you feel about it, Megan.
So it's interesting because you said that this movie does a lot of things well and a lot of things not well. I think this film, it mostly does things not well. I mean, I think this movie's fine. Like it's kind of mediocre. Like it's all right. I love Daisy Ridley and I love Ben Mendelsohn. I think they're great as actors. Daisy Ridley's really interesting because I feel like people don't necessarily know what to do with her as an actor. But she's really great in the film, the recent film. I think it's As I Lay Dying or something about dying. It's a quirky film, and she's really great in it. Really great. And I do like her here. And I like Ben Mendelsohn. I also really love Gil Birmingham. I'm always excited when he shows up on screen. I love Brooklyn Prince. She's great in The Florida Project. She's great in a lot of things. Garrett Hedlund is always good. So I think this is a really, really great cast. It's based on a novel, which I have not read. I have no idea, if it's any good or not. But to me, the writing is really lackluster, like really, really bad. And I'm not saying the book is bad. I have no idea. But the writing here, the screenplay is really bad. And the film, I don't know if you felt this way too, because the cinematographer has worked on some good-looking films, like Joe Wright's Hannah and Danny Boyle's Sunshine.
Wait, he worked on Hannah?
Lynn Ramsey. Yeah, which
kind of
the
same
and looks great.
Same idea as far as the wilderness stuff goes.
It is in that regard, yes. And he's also worked on Lynn Ramsey films. So, but the cinematography here looks not good. There's a weird coloring going on that everything has this weird kind of yellowish brownish tint to it that just looks bizarre to me. And I don't know. So everything about the film just kind of was I know what it's going for. I think it's an interesting concept to explore what it's like to be the daughter of a murderer and to have that kind of looming over you, and because her husband's like, why didn't you tell me? You could have trusted me. And there's this interesting scene where she's standing in front of the car and she's like, hi, I'm blah blah blah, and my father is a killer, and my father kidnapped my mother and kept her in captivity, and she reveals all this stuff, and then she's like, do you want to go out on a date with me? Because her whole point is, if I told you all this, you never would have gone on a date with me. You never would have wanted to see me again. And I think that's a really interesting scene. I think the scene that you were talking about earlier, when the FBI come and the husband's immediately in protective mode, and then he's like, wait a minute, you told me your parents were dead, so that they were killed in a car accident. So that's really interesting. And I think it's really interesting to explore what it's like to have an abusive parent who's not necessarily physically abusive to you, but is physically abusive to your mother, but is emotionally abusive to you and is wildly manipulative. It's really interesting how this unfolds, how we learn about his behavior. And I will say, to the film's credit, I think that is interesting, because at first it's just oh, he's a quirky guy who just likes to go out into the woods and go camping, and he's, maybe a survivalist. Okay, he's really hardcore about that. But then as things unfold, you're like, well, wait a minute, why is he maligning the mother? Mm-hmm. Why is he always oh, the mother doesn't understand happiness the way you and I do? And he's always pitting them against the mother, which is bizarre. And then other things start to unfold. And then as we see flashbacks, we see a young Helena who's kept in the bottom of a well, when because she didn't do something he liked. And so we see oh no, he was, and he tried to drown the mother, because she tried to get away or something in another flashback. So it's oh no. So the father is saying oh, everything was perfect until your mother stole you and poisoned you against me. And it's no, dude, you were a dick all along. You were abusive. And so I think that's really an interesting way to show someone being manipulative and controlling and abusive. So I will say, to the film's credit, and maybe that comes from the book, but to the story's credit, that is really interesting. But I feel like this needs a lot better writing to like really delve into these characters in a more compelling and complex way.
Yeah, I think Daisy Ridley does as well as she can with this stuff, because she's kind of like the one character who's sort of relatively well outlined in a broad sense.
Yes. Agreed. Totally.
I don't
agree.
really think that you need to know what Ben Mendelsohn's motivation is. I mean, he's psychotic. That's the motivation.
Right.
I think where the movie makes some real mistakes is sort of like the cat and mouse-ness of it. I mean, it's very clear that she doesn't believe for a minute that her father is dead.
Right.
And so, I think that you've got a choice to make there in the story. Do you pick up and do you go to Colorado or wherever? And, well, if you do that, then the movie's essentially over, because what's he going to do? Track you to Colorado? I mean, is he going to make the choice to have them stay there, which is not a great choice. I think the whole subplot with her sort of stepfather, as much as I like Gil Birmingham, is like really unnecessary and kind of stupid, frankly, especially the way he meets his demise. I just don't think for a minute that he would walk into that.
No.
I don't think that. I do think it's interesting the way that the relationship plays out with her husband. The way he's basically like, I'm going to give you your space, man, but, and I'm going to be the supportive husband as much as I can, but like, figure this shit out, lady. I mean, it's actually kind of, when you think about it, it's like, what would you do if you were the spouse in that situation? Like, of course you're furious,
right.
But at the same time, you're like, well, my wife was terrorized when she was a child and completely traumatized. So how does that affect her?
Yep.
Do I love her enough to incorporate all of that into our situation now and say, okay, I'll deal with that? Or do I say, nope, our kid comes first, fuck off, like, I also think the little girl who plays Marigold is not very good. But then there are some other mistakes. The whole idea of her going back to first of all, him going to the cabin and her following him there. I just don't really buy that. This guy has been waiting in prison for 20 years, found his moment and escaped, killed the two people, the guy he escaped with and the accomplice. And he's going to go back to the place where they caught him? I don't think so. And also, there's going to be a loaded and operational rifle with a powerful scope buried that the FBI had not found 20 years ago. Fuck off. And I don't think that she would have let him got the upper hand the way she did. And I don't think that when she finally turns the tables on him, that he would have fallen for it that way. So, I don't know. It's all kind of silliness. I did like to see that he got shot in the head 3 times. So, there's that. There you are.
Yay, hi. Last thing I heard you say was fuck off.
Yeah. Well, what I had said was...
what is this? What is Riverside doing to us?
This is really pissing me off today. What I had said was...
Yeah.
I don't think that he would have gone back to the cabin. I don't think she would have followed him there.
Right.
I don't think for a minute that the FBI would not have found that rifle buried underground.
Yep, I heard all that.
And I don't think that she would have let him get the upper hand in the way that he did. And then I don't think he would have fallen for her falling off the side of the cliff like she does.
Right. No, he wouldn't have.
So I think there's a lot.
No, he's too smart.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that she's too smart to do what she does, and he's too smart to believe what she's doing.
Yes, agreed.
So that's where I had come down. And anyway, then I said, the last thing I said was something to the effect of, and we can just pick up here. I did like the fact, though, that he got 3 bullets to the head to end his life, though. I was kind of like, because it kind of feels like it's going to go on for a little bit longer, their whole cat and mouse thing. But she's like, nope, you're dead.
Yeah.
It's just right. It's over right then. And so it's anticlimactic in a way, partly because I didn't believe the way it went down. And then once it did go down, it was just kind of like over and done with pretty quickly, except Gil Birmingham dies doing something that his character never would have done. So,
no.
Yeah, so I'm going to circle back around to what you said earlier about the writing needs to be better. Yeah, the writing needs to be better, So,
yeah,
I think this movie is a real missed opportunity. I feel like, for one thing, we don't get sort of mid-budget level thrillers with name actors very much anymore. And so it is really incumbent.
Totally.
Yeah, it's really incumbent upon you to do it right, so that we can get more of them.
Agreed.
Because not everything can have a huge fucking blow out your ass budget like Gone Girl,
I do love Gone Girl.
Yeah. So it just kind of, it's not like there are a million thrillers that are really well done, but I just feel like this is a real missed opportunity, especially given, Daisy Ridley, Ben Mendelsohn, Gil Birmingham. This is a solid cast. So
it is. But actually, I think you've spoiler pieced me into agreeing with you that there are some things that this does well. Because at first I was like, this is not very good, but the cast is so good. But no, I think there are some good things, some good choices. But yeah, but unfortunately, like that seems to be my complaint so often in films, is that if I have a problem with a film, it's the writing. So often it boils down to the writing. And I think that's really, I have some issues with the cinematography, and I think there's some issues with the direction here, but really for me, it comes down to the writing most of all. Because this is such a solid cast.
Yeah, I just don't believe a lot of the things that these people end up doing. Like, I believe a lot of what they do up until they start doing things they shouldn't do. If that makes sense. It's like, she's just she's just not going to go to that cabin to look for him. I just don't believe it. Well,
the thing of it is that people are contradictory in real life.
Yeah.
And people do things against their nature or against logic all the time. But you have to make it feel like there's stakes, and which is weird because there should be stakes, because he's a murderer and he's unhinged and he's a control freak and all that. But yet somehow it doesn't feel like there's high enough stakes where he would fall for her tricks, or she would do things that she wouldn't logically do, or that Gil Birmingham would do things that he wouldn't logically. Like, it doesn't ever feel like there's such a high enough, like the emotions are so heightened, or the stakes are so high that they are going to just go against what they know, or what they believe, or what their character is. So,
yeah.
So, I agree with you. I think it should have. I agree with you actually a lot on this, because you're right. We need more mid-budget thrillers, but also I agree with you that I think if this had just been a straight up drama, it might have been better. Maybe not, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The other thing, there was one other thing. When they're up there back in the UP and she's chasing him with the rifle after he's tried to get away in the canoe.
Oh, when he's in the boat?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sure. This is one of the things that I do find interesting. I'm not sure if, she shoots the oar out of his hand. And it's like, did she mean to shoot him, or did she mean to shoot the oar out of his hand?
Good
because
question.
There's a whole question of, when he kills the guy with the ATV, he says, well, I was aiming for the tank. And she says, you never would have missed the tank if you were aiming for it.
Right.
And I wonder if that's like circling around back to that. But the other thing is, he's been in prison for 20 years. So that means he's, and he doesn't look like he's been going to the gym every day in the joint.
No.
And then he's just like hiding there in the water, which she correctly figures out that he's doing things kind of the opposite of what he would do, because she knows how he works.
Mm-hmm.
But then the whole idea that he would that he would just be like able to do this as if he had been doing it for the past 20 years, like not a day had passed. I just don't believe that either. Anyway.
What I do believe, and what I think is an interesting choice right in the beginning of the film, and this is one of the things that tipped me off to like, oh, something is going very awry here, is when, you know, there's a wolf outside their door at night, and when Helena's a kid, and he's like, you got to shoot her and because she's starving, and Helena's like, oh, but can't we just give her scraps? We've got extra food. We could just give her food. And then they see like a little, pup come along, and he's like, nope, they got to rely on themselves. You got to shoot her. And she's aiming the gun, and she can't shoot the wolf because she's like, and she keeps asking questions. She's like, but wait a minute, what if we do? And he's like, for God's sakes. And he like grabs the gun and just shoots. And I'm like, oh, this guy's got problems. Like, this guy doesn't give a shit about teaching his kid anything or her asking questions. It's his way or the highway, or no way rather. And so that I was like, oh, no, this guy's no good.
Yeah.
But
so that's the Marsh King's daughter. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, but basically, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a seed of a good idea here. Some interesting themes that could have been explored. Great cast, but I think they're squandered, and I think the writing needs to be a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I agree with all that. It is a little lackluster.
Yeah, a little clunky.
So is Divergent, though, so it all makes sense. So let's.
I actually weirdly like Divergent. It's Neil Burger's other films I don't like, but Divergent is not great. But I do kind of like it in a weird way.
You know why you like it? Because Shailene Woodley is awesome. That's why.
Yes, that is why. You are 100%. I do love Shailene Woodley.
It's just like Shailene Woodley's in this.
That is so
I'll
right.
see it. Yeah.
I know, right? I'll watch her in anything. I'm like, oh, she's in it. I'm in.
That is absolutely how I feel about her. It's like, she's in it. Cool. So.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The movie would suck without her.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next movie of the evening. We have Quiz Lady. Not Quiznos Lady, but Quiz Lady. Starring Awkwafina, Sandra Oh, and Will Ferrell. Directed by Jessica Yu. Written by Jen D'Angelo. Your one-sentence IMDb summary. Let's see if it's better than The Marsh King.
God,
Good
let's
Lord.
hope so.
A game show-obsessed woman. Already quibbling with this. A game show-obsessed woman and her estranged sister work together to help cover their mother's gambling debts. 3/4 of that is true. She's not game show-obsessed. She is obsessed with one game show.
Yes.
So basically, you learn very quickly in a kind of quick thing, mom and dad are divorced because mom's a gambling junkie and dad left them, and Sandra Oh's character is 10 years older than Awkwafina's character. Because I remember at the beginning of this, I'm like, man, that's a big age gap. And then they make the point of saying that they're 10 years apart. Of course, Sandra Oh and Awkwafina are really like 15 years apart in real life, but whatever. So basically, Awkwafina has never missed this quiz show hosted by Will Ferrell since she was very young, 4 or 5 years old. And Sandra Oh has become this, would you call her a free spirit or just a whack job? I mean, I don't know.
I wouldn't use the term, so I would say free spirit.
Free spirit, free-spirited whack job. Yes. How about that?
No, I would say she's flaky.
Perfect.
She's flaky.
She's a free-spirited flake. Yeah.
Yes.
Like her heart's definitely in the right place, but she's a little bit of a kook.
Yes.
Yeah. And
all of that I agree.
Then
with.
you have Awkwafina. So Awkwafina's Anne, Sandra Oh is Jenny, and Anne she's working as she's a CPA or something like that. I don't know. She's doing something with numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. I don't fucking know. And they get this call that their mother has disappeared from this nursing home where she's been. And as it turns out, her mom has gone to Macau to gamble with some guy. And she owes some mafia guy like $80,000. So he steals Awkwafina's pug, Mr. Linguini, and says, I'm keeping your dog until, you pay me your money. And then when Awkwafina is doing the quiz answers like she does every night, Sandra Oh records her, sticks it on the internet. It goes viral. Sandra Oh convinces Awkwafina to try to get on the game show so that they can pay off their mother's debts. So they do that. They go. She gets on the show. And she wins all the money and pays off all the debts. Now, I've left out lots and lots of stuff because to describe all of this in detail would be an exercise. And this movie's wacky. This is a wacky movie. On purpose. It's not just like, we don't know what we're doing. It's like, it made the decision, 1, we're a comedy. 2, we're going to be a cuckoo comedy. 3, we're going to be strangely sentimental sometimes.
Yes.
And I don't know, what do you think? We can get into the stuff, but overall, what's your impression? What do you think? How you feeling?
So I will see Sandra Oh in anything. I adore her, love her, worship at her altar, love, love, love. I have loved her since Grey's Anatomy, love her on Killing Eve. I think she can do no wrong. I think she is the saving grace of this film. And that doesn't mean that I think that there are bad things about this film, although there are some things that just did not work for me. Actually, a lot of it didn't work for me. But I think what does work is Sandra Oh. And I think her rapport with Awkwafina is quite good. But really, for me, it's Sandra Oh. I think she really embodies this quirky character and really commits. Like, even when we're introduced to her, we see Awkwafina's character Anne talking to the assisted living nursing home people after her mother's escaped and to run away to Macau to gamble. And we're introduced to her sister Jenny by getting hit by a car, like almost getting hit by a car, and her like way in the background, like kind of like freaking out and yelling. And like, she is so a different character than I've ever seen her play before.
Yes.
And in her physicality and the way she talks and kind of everything. And I just love that. And I think she's really funny. So for me, this film, while some moments don't work, some I think do. Surprisingly, I think Will Ferrell is really a delight here. I know I'm curious in a moment to hear what you think, because I know you don't always like Will Ferrell, but I think he's quite good here. Maybe because he did Alex Trebek so much on Celebrity Jeopardy on SNL. I don't know, but I thought he was very understated, which is kind of weird for him. Since he's so bombastic and over the top so much. But yeah, I think for me, this film, what I enjoyed ultimately rested on Sandra Oh's shoulders.
Yeah. Well, getting to Will Ferrell, since I'm thinking about it, I feel like this performance, his performance in this has a lot in common with his performance in like Stranger Than Fiction, for example.
Yes, that's what I thought too. It's funny you say that.
Yeah. And then the thing about him is, he's done this over the course of his career where he seems like he's playing a normal person and then he goes insane. So I kept waiting for that to happen.
Right.
And I think that's one of the dangers, when you cast him is, he's so he's known. Now he's a talented guy and he can do lots of different things, but he's known primarily for doing one thing.
Yes.
And so when you see him in this role playing kind of like a sweet, kind, understated guy, it's I'm like, I'm not sure I believe this.
It's jarring.
Yeah, and then you sort of realize, all right, well, the person in this scenario on the game show who's an asshole is Jason Schwartzman, and he has made a kind of a career. Now he plays all kinds of different characters, that's true. But if I think about Jason Schwartzman, what I think most of all is kind of an asshole,
I do too. Kind of like a smarmy asshole.
Yeah. So the fact that he is, I think they make a mistake because, of course, the gag with him is he's been on, it's very much like Jeopardy. He's supposed to be kind of like Ken Jennings. He's one show away from being the longest, like I think it's 84 shows or something like that in a row that he's going to win. And Awkwafina, of course, is the challenger who's threatening him. And he sort of thinks he's going to, now they never say this explicitly until the very end, he thinks he's going to parlay this into taking over the hosting duties when Will Ferrell retires, which, by the way, Will Ferrell is not that old. But, and there's no reference to his character being old in this movie, but whatever. I think that I think in a movie that has so many choices that are outrageous, this one is curiously understated in a bad way. the dynamic between those two. But most of the movie is about Awkwafina and Sandra Oh playing off each other, and Sandra Oh being the, let's just say, kook, like I have been saying, and Awkwafina being the one who's all buttoned up. What I do like to see is how they sort of bring out the crazy in each other, how Jenny can make Anne just so angry. And because Awkwafina's performance is really buttoned up in this movie for most of it, until she sort of loses her mind a couple of times at her sister. And she does get to do some, I guess you could call it funny stuff when she's accidentally tripping balls at one point. Because she, this is one of these things that the movie does where Awkwafina, Jenny's going to get Anne on this game show because, she knows the answers to all the questions, blah, 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 you get the idea. But Awkwafina, Anne, is like, I don't want to be on TV in front of people. I can't have all those eyes watching me. It's like, well, why don't we just show her getting nervous in situations like we've kind of got that set up. She intentionally keeps her desk away from everybody else's desk at work. That's one thing that you've shown us, but that's really all you've shown us. It's like, okay, she lives at home alone with her dog. I know a lot of fucking people who live at home alone with their dog, and they're not afraid to talk in front of people. They just want to live at home alone with a dog, so.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and then, the whole Holland Taylor subplot doesn't really work.
Oh, God. That just irked me.
And I really like Holland Taylor, too. So
I do, too.
It's really a bummer to see her play just such a kind of a crummy character. And, everybody else in this movie is losing their fucking minds. Let her lose her mind, for Christ's sake.
Well, she does lose it when she meets Paul Rubens, who she thinks is Alan Cumming.
Which should be funny, but was not funny to me.
No, not funny at all.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not really sure how you could possibly confuse Alan Cumming and Paul Rubens, which is maybe part of the joke, but okay.
Maybe? I don't know. It wasn't funny to me at all, so I'm glad it wasn't to you, but also I'm like, a lot of things that people find hilarious, I don't. So I'm like, maybe it's me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess so. Having Awkwafina say, I don't like being in front of people. I just feel like that's one of those things that you can show that. I mean, there's a way to.
Yes.
You can have her
yes,
go up to the counter at a coffee shop and not be able to order. You can.
Perfect. Yep. Perfect example.
There's all kinds of things, and then they have this moment in the movie. The screenplay kind of hinges on this rather unfortunate story/anecdote where Jenny and Anne were staying with their wealthy cousins in Los Angeles, and Anne felt so out of place that she couldn't, she was constipated basically, and then the night she realizes she has to shit, she didn't want to do it in the house, so she goes and digs a hole and does it in the yard. And then the cousins find it, and Jenny takes the rap for it. Now, the whole idea of the older sister taking the rap for something the younger sister did, and it being kind of outrageous, the thing that happened, so it's weird that the 18-year-old would have done that. And they do have a decent moment there at the end of that. When Awkwafina says, well, why didn't you tell me? And Jenny just says to her, because you were 8, And it's like, boy, that makes a lot of sense. But the whole idea that this hinges on a fucking shit joke really bummed me out. Really fucking bummed me out.
Ditto.
I'm not opposed to scatological humor. I'm not. But this just no. Nope.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, bathroom humor is not really my thing, so I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm there with you. It didn't work for me either. I don't know. And I get what they were doing, they're going for the over-the-top kind of bridesmaids shitting in the street, which I find that to be the least funny part of that film. And, kind of, or Bachelorette, we're gonna be coked out of our minds and do bad things. I get what they're going for. They're going for that just over the top absurdity, but it just didn't land for me, except because Sandra Oh is so good that she really sells it. So for me, the writing was lacking, but she's so good and is good with Awkwafina that I think that it becomes this really sweet moment. But I agree with you. It is unfortunate that it all hinges on a shit joke. Like, Jesus.
Yeah. And then there are other choices, like it's kind of a road movie, but it's not a road movie. And it's kind of like a family drama.
I wish it had been more of a... Yeah, I wish it had been more of a road movie. It's kind of a family
drama, but it's not a drama. But it's also not really a comedy. I mean...
Right.
It's more of a comedy than it is a drama, but the dramatic things in it are so dramatic that it kind of takes some of the comedy out, you know?
Yeah, like kidnapping a dog, but then like I know it's like supposed to be softened because when Sandra Oh goes to confront the guy, he like takes in all these dogs and she's like, "Where did all your money go?" And he's like, "It's to take care of the dogs because people don't come back for their dogs and these dogs need, food and that dog needs to be touched all the time or he gets sad." Like that's somehow supposed to deflate the fact that he kidnapped a dog, and I feel that it's a weird choice.
Almost works. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they could have done to make it work entirely, but the whole idea that you've got this mafia enforcer or mafioso, whatever, who, goes over to people and roughs them up because they owe him money and then he steals their dogs. But even if they pay him, he won't give the dogs back because he's fallen in love with the dogs. That's kind of funny.
Right, and he treats the dogs so well.
Yeah, he treats the dogs really well, and I mean that's kind of funny, but it didn't quite land because I'm thinking about I'm just thinking about that being a thing in a movie, and to me it's funny hearing myself describe it, but then to see it on the screen, something didn't translate.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like I'm laughing hearing you talk about it. It should be, there should be some, absurdity, some humor in that, and it just didn't work fully for me. To me, it's almost like, they're trying to soften the, like how serious some of the plots go. And I don't know. It just felt jarring. Anyway.
So, I don't know.
Some moments I thought were funny though. So some of it worked for me, but most just, no.
I thought it was funny. I thought that all the stuff with Tony Hale was kind of funny. The Ben Franklin stuff, which is just throwaway stuff. Oh my God.
That
Those
I loved.
All throwaway jokes. The whole thing.
Yes, but
it's really funny.
But that was funny. Yeah. It's really funny. I loved it. I loved Tony Hale because he's really funny.
Yeah, he's really funny in that. Now, I've seen Tony Hale in some stuff post, he's in Stranger Than Fiction too, and post Arrested Development where I'm like, nope, this doesn't work. But he's great in this small role, making the most, and strangely understated, but still really doing it,
Yes, committing to the role as a Ben Franklin impersonator at a Ben Franklin themed bed and breakfast.
Who has to toe the line between acting like he's Ben Franklin and therefore doesn't know X, Y, and Z, but also has to answer the phone so he can take reservations and things like that. And how they're like, so wait a minute, you can, say that you don't know what this is, but you don't know what a credit card is, but you'll take my credit card to charge me for the room? Like... That's just, it's kind of funny.
It is.
Yeah. And then I should say, when they finally get to the game show and they do all that stuff, they do the game show stuff. I mean, I think that worked as well.
Oh yeah, I liked that.
Yeah, I think that's really mostly because of like Will Ferrell, but I also think that because the thing. There's this whole thing about you've got to basically play charades if you get to the final section of this game, which I do not believe for a fucking minute. But I think that's one of the reasons that I kind of had not a problem with that. Overall, I was just kind of like, nah, I just don't believe that you've got a quiz show, which is predicated on you knowing all of this fucking strange, obscure knowledge. Arcane fucking weird shit that nobody should know. And then for the final thing, instead of having like a showcase showdown or Final Jeopardy, you have to play charades with somebody who's not a contestant on the show? Ay, what the hell? You know what I do believe, though? The fact that Will Ferrell's character never wore the same bow twice. Bow tie twice. I believe that. You know? That I believe.
Oh, yeah. I believe that, too.
But, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I have to say, I kind of loved the charades showdown, as stupid and absurd as it is, because, I mean, granted, it's a very different game show, but it very much reminded me of like $100,000 Pyramid. Which, I mean, granted, that's not charades. They're just listing things off to like clue you in, but I don't know. I kind of loved that.
$25 or $100,000 pyramid.
Maybe because I'm a game show nut.
Right.
Yeah, originally $25,000 pyramid, and then they bumped it up to $100,000.
I just keep thinking of the Friends episode where
anyway.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of game shows.
The Friends episode that Joey's on, and he accidentally keeps giving away the answers when it's like, this is like a thing you do when you're, you know, it's like you eat snacks when you're hungry, and they're like, because the clue was snacks or whatever.
That's a good
anyway,
one.
So that's quiz. I mean, what else do you want to say about? I was going to say quiz show. That's not what it's called. That's the Robert Redford movie.
No, that's a very different movie. Yeah, I mean, I think the movie for me starts off kind of rough, but then as it goes along, it gets a lot better because you have Tony Hale, who's so funny, and you have Will Ferrell, who's funny but really sweet, surprisingly sweet. You know, in this movie, which I like I was not expecting. I kept expecting him to be like a weirdo too. Like, but yeah, and I really love the charade scene between Sandra Oh and because she's guessing Awkwafina's clues because it seems so absurd, and you know, Sandra Oh doesn't like Jenny, her character doesn't really know any trivia, so Awkwafina Ann starts doing like gestures that their family members are doing, kind of like in family jokes and stuff, which is so smart because then Jenny's like, oh, that's Uncle Tony, or that's the stock market, or oh, that's so and so, that's, you know, I wanted to be a figure skater, that's Christy Yamaguchi, like, and it's just really smart. And so I don't know, I really liked that. There was just like this palpable energy that I was like vibing with. So by the end of the movie, I kind of enjoyed it, but for me, it's like a very uneven movie.
It's definitely uneven.
It starts off kind of
rough.
You know
what else I also like about, I don't love the charade scene overall, but you know what I do like about it? The fact that when they win with like 6 seconds to go. It's not like down to the wire. It's like, because then it cuts to like the shot of like what, you know, the like a TV audience at home would be watching, and the clock's like counting down from like 5 seconds. You're like, oh, not only did they win, they won handily, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know why I liked that, but I was just like, yeah, we didn't go for the whole like, oh my God, are they going to make it? You know, so.
Right. It's nice. It's nice when you see something different.
That's it. So, this is another one. I can't say see it. I can't say don't see it. I mean, it's fine. Whatever. I you know, I like Awkwafina a lot, and I like Sandra Oh a lot. I think that if it were not Awkwafina, if it were who doesn't have charisma, if it were someone with less charisma, I'd be like, yeah, hard pass. But I think it depends on, you know, how much you want to indulge your wacky bone. You know, if you're feeling like I feel silly,
yeah, that's fair.
Then okay. If you're like, I want to see a comedy, but more of like not more cerebral,
like or not screwball,
then maybe skip it. But it's definitely a mixed bag. One thing that I will say, I hate the score. Because the score.
You mean the soundtrack or the score or both?
Because it does that thing that goofy comedies like this do, and they really did it in the late 80s and early 90s. And goofy comedies have kind of gotten away from this, but it's drifting back in, is that whole thing where you have like clarinets and oboes being silly at the top of the like da-da-da-da-da. It's like, fuck off with that shit. All right? We can think of other things to do. You know, to imply that something's light and funny, than have a fucking clarinet playing at the top of its range.
But speaking of the music, I do have to say it is a bold fucking choice to start a movie with the Scissor Sisters, I don't feel like dancing, because I fucking love the Scissor Sisters. And by the way, that's one of the best concerts I've ever been to. I went like a good, 10, 15 years ago to see them when they were still performing, because now they've sadly broken up. That show was incredible. That was a show. It was ostentatious and flamboyant and amazing. Well, anyway. So as soon as I heard that song, I was like, damn, I'm into this movie. They were ostentatious
and flamboyant, so, it all kind of makes sense.
It does. It was a great choice.
Yeah. Well, do you have closing thoughts on Ye Old Quiz Lady?
Just that I want to see Sandra Oh in more things, because I love her.
Comedies, too. Not that she hasn't done comedies, but like...
Yeah. No, she has, but she's so funny. But she does a lot of dramas, and she's really funny. Like, really funny.
She's very good. Did you ever see, it's like one of the first movies she was in. It's like a Canadian indie movie. It's called Double Happiness.
No, it's been on my list for a while.
It's really good. I think you'd like it a lot.
Oh, good. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. I'll check it out.
She's a kid in it. She's got to be like in her early 20s. It's, anyway.
Nice.
So that's this episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. Yay. Do a quick recap. So I think this is, for both movies, we're kind of like, see it, don't see it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those weeks.
It is, because there's good casts in both. There's good aspects of both, but also some issues with both.
Yeah,
so
totally.
What are you going to do?
Want to thank our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Heather, thank you for being our sponsor piece patron. That is very cool of you.
Thanks so much, Heather.
Want to thank our editor, Otto Clammer, who's going to have work cut out for them tonight because of all the stops and starts we had to do. I apologize, Otto. I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Otto.
Yeah. If you want to listen to Spoiler Piece all the time, you can get it anywhere you get your podcasts. If you want to go to our website and check out what we got going on there, we're spoilerpiece.com. If you follow us on social media, check out Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook and at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you want to get in touch with us, tell us that the Marsh King's daughter is really good, ? Email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail and tell us why Awkwafina is better than Sandra Oh in, what's the movie what's it called? Quiz Lady.
Quiz Lady, not Quiznos Lady.
I know. I was actually thinking to myself when I said that, it's like, it's not Quiznos Lady. So there you go. If you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, or you can rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That helps us out a lot. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. This week, Megan and I talked about the 1953 romantic comedy Roman Holiday, starring Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck. We had a great time talking about that. And it's only $5 a month to get the audio. It's only $5 a month. There are other tiers too, but to have free, no, you got to pay for it. What am I talking about, Megan? Jesus, I've lost my mind. So it's 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night.
The train is derailed.
I know. Good Lord. So anyway, sorry about that. The point is, we have a Patreon. There are different tiers to listen to all of the nearly 400 bonus episodes we have. It's a $5 a month thing, and it costs more, it costs less, depending on what you do. You get the idea. You know how Patreon works. So anyway, my name is David Riedel. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And if you want to follow me on, see if I can get these all. Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, Blue Sky, Dave Sees Movies. There you go.
That is a lot.
It is.
And my name is Megan Kearns. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm co-host of the Slashers podcast. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Opinion World, or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
And we'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye.